Now, a fortnight ago, I said, as the newspapers were full of speculation about when would Boris's comeback be, I said I thought he was finished. And last night, by any measure, after the attempted revolution that he tried to promote within the Conservative Party, ended in humiliation. I think it was only 7 members of Parliament voting with Boris Johnson against the recommendations of the Privileges Committee. Even Jacob Rees-Mogg, who takes over from me in 45 minutes, and I'll ask him why, even Jacob abstained. I wonder, is Boris now finished as a Conservative political figure? Well, Phillip Blond is a former advisor to David Cameron and very much part of that Conservative set. I was pretty bearish about Boris's chances a couple of weeks ago. It seemed to me not only, Phillip, had he lost the confidence of his own parliamentary party, but when you look at the polling in the country, he's about as popular as Prince Andrew.
Yes, and it doesn't get much lower than that. Look, I think sometimes conventional wisdom is right, and conventional wisdom would have that he's finished. I think he's wildly unpopular in the country, but I think most striking is that he's unpopular in his own parliamentary party, and nobody will
But to be fair,
stand.
he never was popular amongst the parliamentary party.
He wasn't.
If you go back to early 2019, he'd voted twice against Mrs May's deal, then at third time of asking voted for it. Neither wing of the party seemed to like him in those days.
Yeah, but people didn't have to like him to back him because they thought he was a winner. I think, though, we live in an era where things are only going to get more polarised, more crises. So I think it would be a mistake to wholly count him out. He basically withdrew from the process and left to preserve his political capital. So he has an idea that he's not out.
What, you mean he ran away?
Well, in his own... his whole kind of appeal rests on the idea he's always a winner. So in his own mind, he withdrew from the contest that he thought he would lose. Remember when he went for the leadership, Gove was going to turn up, didn't. He pulled out because he didn't think he could win. So he's preserving that idea. The interesting thing is that Boris lost because basically he didn't understand what happened in the 2019 election. He got what kind of experts call the upper left quadrant vote. They wanted to move left on the economy, and by that I don't mean socialism, I mean securing the lives of working class people, of people who are below the median wage, their lives, their hopes, their economic aspirations.
Working class Brexit voters.
Well, and there were people who liked Boris who weren't even in favour of Brexit, and also wanted to move hard right culturally so that we didn't go for kind of self-identification of women as men and vice versa. The trouble is he couldn't deliver either. No. And that's largely because his parliamentary party remains conventional 1980s Thatcherite liberals. They're both economically liberal and socially liberal. His constituency wanted a post-liberal offer economically and socially, and he couldn't deliver it. If you look in the end what levelling up is on offer, it's not even equal to the amount that's spent on managing migration.
No, I mean, Phillip, I know his constituency. I know the Red Wall. They'd all voted UKIP before. These were the people, a couple of million of them, that had left Labour, voted UKIP, voted Brexit Party, voted for Boris. They now feel incredibly let down by him and by the Conservative Party.
Well, they've been let down by generations. We have structurally, on the left and the right, abandoned ordinary people because the world worked for the upper middle class and it didn't work for ordinary working people. Well, it used to be the case that people could secure a home, a family life and some sort of future with an ordinary wage. We can't do that now.
And see a GP and expect their kids to get on a housing list.
What the Conservatives don't get is the state has to work for ordinary people because that's all they've got. And what we have now, since 2010, is a completely dysfunctional state that doesn't work on crime, doesn't work on health, doesn't really work on education, and it doesn't work. And it's okay if you've got money and wealth, but it's not if you don't. Now, here's where if Boris, because Boris remained a social liberal, and I think he tried to turn the party towards helping this constituency, but the parliamentary party isn't there. He could run as an insurgent. We could see a situation where the Conservative Party loses badly and there isn't an obvious leader. They could become, if you forgive me, like 19th century Whigs, where nobody will vote for them. Because the offer that people reject was the offer of Liz Truss, the standard kind of conventional Tory 1980s offer. That's like 5% of the country. The party is likely to congregate around that. And so then you see the possibility of the erasure on the right. Yeah. So I still think it would be a mistake to count him out on the right.
Well, I'm counting him out in the Conservative Party.
I think that's right. But
and to me, Philip, I was thinking about this. I mean, he might even fancy his chances in London. I mean, the Tories have a short list of 3 to take on Sadiq Khan. Not one of them is a household name, and none of them are likely to be a household name by the time the election happens. London is an opportunity. And then I thought, actually, Boris has one big political legacy. It's that we left the European Union whilst he was Prime Minister. I think his future is outside, not inside, the Tory party.
But the future of the Tory party might not be that good, to be honest. If Labour are elected and bring in proportional representation...
Then everything changes.
Yeah. Then you can have a situation where a small group of social and economic liberals don't control the right. And then you could have a genuinely post-liberal party on the right, and that, I'm afraid, is a political opportunity for people like Boris. And if he can attune... The tragedy with Boris is he's the only, along with Theresa May, who had a similar kind of legacy bequeathed to her, is he's the only Prime Minister who understood that there was a shift needed. And the tragedy is he couldn't pull it off. He couldn't move, say, we need to get there. He had no ability to realise how to get there.
Did he really believe in it? You see, this to me is interesting. I mean, he did join the Brexit campaign, and I was very grateful to him because he helped us get it over the line. But did he really believe in it?
I don't think he believed in Brexit qua Brexit, but I do think he believed in the economic enfranchisement of ordinary people. He didn't believe in the culture wars. He was and is a social liberal.
He is a metropolitan liberal.
He's a metropolitan liberal socialist.
He is a London lovey in so many ways.
Well, London's odd, isn't it, though, because it's also the most socially conservative part of Britain. Who no one ever talks about this, but
not the upper middle class white population.
No, but in terms of population, the minority voters are religious and very conservative.
Yes.
So London is paradoxically the most liberal and the most conservative place in Britain.
Yes.
So I would say that the polarisation, the fragmentation of British politics hasn't stopped. The Conservative Party is on the brink of a historic failure because it cannot deal with reality. It remains trapped in the past. If we get Labour and if we get proportional representation, everything changes.
Yes. Well, I tell you what, I might get involved again if we get proportional representation, and it would be a very, very different world. And I wonder, final thought on that. There are some that think that PR would give us a permanent, the Daily Mail, for example, would give us a permanent centre-left majority. And yet, looking at the Brexit result in a referendum, that's not guaranteed at all, is it?
I don't think it is guaranteed. And I think that we are splitting down the middle like America. I was speaking to somebody who knows American politics very well, and they rate Trump's chances against Biden as better than the last time, which again is against conventional wisdom. Look, the situation for ordinary people in this country isn't going to get any better. We haven't solved the productivity crisis, so therefore we don't have the money to support people. And that goes back arguably even before the financial crisis. All of our governing classes have conventional ideas that have failed and will continue to fail. Therefore, the chances of breakup, fragmentation and entropy are very much on the cards.
I agree with you, Phillip Blond. Thank you very much indeed. And the earthquake that was Brexit, what we're seeing really are still the aftershocks. And I agree with Phillip Blond. I think in the next 5 years we could see some very, very major changes.